So in September 2012, I heard this term climate resilience that I'd never heard. I was the CFO of this New York Wheel project, a monster project that's getting built in Staten Island, New York at the Ferry Terminal. And that got me fascinated with this field of climate resilience, which I had no knowledge of. And our site was in two different flood zones, a coastal flood zone and a non-coastal flood zone. So we had to design this to survive a level 3 hurricane, which is gusts of 129 miles an hour. This is a rendering of what is going to be built in Staten Island. It's a very large project. Over here is the Verrazano Bridge. And what happens is the wheel turns very slowly, about 10 inches a second. It doesn't stop. It's perpetual motion. So what you get is a beautiful view of Manhattan. So what I'm going to do quickly is show you the ground level plan is 12 feet. Now, when you do a public-private partnership like this, there's a lot of give and take. I wanted this to actually be 15 to 16 feet because of sea level rise. But because of the costs, we decided to do 12 feet. And what we're doing is allowing this floor to flood. And nothing is that important to us that in the event of another Superstorm Sandy, we will actually let this thing flood. So that was one of the big trade-offs that we had to do because the cost of fill is so expensive that to go another 4 or 5 feet would be too much. This will give you a sense. It's got an amazing view of New York City because usually when you go to the Empire State Building or the New World Trade Center, you're looking at Manhattan from Manhattan. This is looking 5.2 nautical miles from Manhattan, so you can see on a clear day all the way up to New Jersey to the George Washington Bridge over here. So it's a 30-mile view, and it's going to be a very special project. Just to give you some idea of the mass, this is a really monster thing. It's 60 stories high, and there's nothing close to 60 stories high in Staten Island. So it is definitely going to be seen throughout the New York metropolitan area. I believe you have one that's either here or going up here. It's a little smaller. I think it's about 175 feet. Now, here's what happened. Over here, we decided this is where they load and unload the wheel. This is 33 feet. So we always have to keep in mind sea level rise because in this part of the world, we're thinking, maybe 4 or 5 feet of sea level rise in the next 50 to 100 years. And this wheel is built to last 50 years, and we have a 99-year lease with the city of New York. So this is a very long-term project.
How many feet did you say on sea level rise again?
Klaus Jacob, one of my advisors, who's the big name in New York City climate, is talking 4 to 5 feet, between now and the next 50 years.
4 to 5?
Yeah, feet of sea level rise in the New York harbor. All right, so one of the things we came up with, remember, we were in a flood zone, and we have this, big wheel that we had to raise up a little bit to 12 feet, which is about 2 feet higher than the revised floodplain after Sandy. It was 8 feet, so then it went to 10. Now we're at 12. As I said, I would have liked 15 or 16, but cost-benefit analysis would not allow it. We're backed by 3 of the biggest real estate investors in New York City, so they're concerned more about dollars than green, and that's an issue that we have to deal with. It's a reality. This is what one of the architects came up with. The architect, interestingly, said, Sandy was a 100-year flood. It's never going to happen again. Don't worry. And I said to him, worry. And he came up with this idea. And what it is, you can't see it too well, but basically over here is the emergency fuel. Over here is the cooling tower. So all the mechanicals are housed in this very special tower that is out of the flood zone. So this is called hardening and a resilience effort to take things out of the flood zone, which are crucial mechanicals. When Sandy hit, most of lower Manhattan on the east side was totally flooded, and you ended up with oil in the basement and very big messes. So we're out of the flood zone, and this is an 80 to 100 foot tower. They haven't really finalized it. And This design, which I thought was beautiful, ends up being something a little more mundane because of the powers that be, New York City politics. It's interesting, the planners and the designers wanted something less ornate than what we designed as developers, which is very rare. Usually it's the other way around. This gives you some sense of the magnitude of this project. Over here is the Ferry Terminal, which has been there since 1905. It's a free ferry. There are already 2 million tourists that ride it every day to see the Statue of Liberty. So we have a built-in tourism base. Over here is going to be the first outlet mall for New York City. We're not doing this project, another developer is doing this. So this is going to also be built. The city was very concerned about getting enough concentration in something like the fifth borough, we call it, is the forgotten borough, Staten Island. So they want to build this outlet mall. This stadium is the Staten Island Yankees, a minor league stadium, and it's been built. It was built right before 9/11, unfortunately. Mayor Giuliani at the time did it so when you were a lefty, you would see the Twin Towers when you were up at the plate. And then 2 months later, 9/11 hit. And then, of course, there's the wheel. So it gives you a sense. This tower is what they approved. Something very simple. It saved us a few $1 million, and we definitely found other places to spend it on. So this is basically the entrance for the wheel. This is a green roof. It may be the largest green roof in the state of New York when it's finished. I'm not sure, so let's say it's one of the largest green roofs. One of the first things they asked us to do was put a playground. We said yes immediately. Over here is sustainability was always a big theme for this project. These are photovoltaic cells. This is these wind turbines. So when we first designed it, we always wanted sustainability to be part of the exhibit. And Cornell is actually going to be sponsoring the exhibition hall, which is 16,000 square feet for sustainability exhibit. So what ends up happening is at one point we were going to cover the whole thing with sustainability. Once again, cost-benefit analysis indicated that it wasn't profitable enough to do that. Now, however, I'm not even sure that some of the biggest engineers correctly calculated what we call the payback, because you do get investment tax credits for, doing these kind of investments. So it's interesting. These are some of the biggest firms in New York City, and even they were not 100% up on the sustainability aspects of it. So I didn't fight too hard. We did get this part, and what ends up happening here is we end up with a theater. So we could have up to 10,000 people on our green roof for a concert overlooking Manhattan. So it's going to be nice. So that was the trade-off between having less sustainability elements. At one point, the manufacturer of the wheel, it's the Dutch company, was saying that they could make the wheel resilient and actually, pay for a lot of the energy costs. But once again, cost benefit, the developers said, no, we don't want to get into that much brain damage. So you see, I present this because this is the cost benefit analysis that is done on any public-private partnership. And a lot of things fall by the wayside that unfortunately I didn't really want to fall by the wayside, but you have to, go with realities. So that was, the New York Wheel, which is what got me into this whole natural resilience fund. And about 90 days ago, I stopped doing the New York Wheel, only do the natural resilience because it's so exciting for me to try and do this platform. It's a not-for-profit platform, and what I'm trying to do is get legislators, which is a lot to say in today's environment, get legislators to enact two different funding mechanisms for resilience and sustainability. One I call the Climate Resilience Investment Tax Credit. You can call it a credit. If you don't like that, you can call it a CRITC. And I've also come up with a Climate Resilience Investment Grant Subsidy that I call it CRIS. That's easier, so nobody have a problem with that. We originally had this idea for New York metro area because of Sandy. Because of the virtues of LinkedIn, there are now over 2,000 people on my network around the world. And a lot of people from all over the world got very interested in this. The government of the Philippines is seriously considering implementing a lot of the white paper elements of our platform. So we are trying to do this for publicly approved projects. But what happened when we started to get involved with this, we saw that there was a need at a building level to help people understand what they could do to their home or their business or their business district. Because you're right, Janine, the fact of psychology is so important in this. The people element, we had a branding fellow in last week who explained to us that your white paper is great, but it doesn't talk about people. And without people, there's nothing here. This is all about people. And that's one of the big problems when you really look at going beyond the thought process of resiliency and sustainability. It's getting the municipalities and the people to work together to do this. So we came up with a mission statement, which was to create these financing mechanisms, because the big problem is money. There are hundreds of billions of dollars that are going to be required, maybe trillions over the next 50 years. And it's interesting, you know, we came up with this because of Mayor Bloomberg, who is no longer in office, incidentally. So his plan was brilliant. It cost $5 million, that plan. It's called an SIRR resiliency plan. You can get it online. It's dated June 2013. Only New York City could afford to pay $5 million for a document like this. But the good news is it's a model for any municipality to follow that doesn't have the $5 million. Like the state of New Jersey does not have $5 million. That's how big New York City is. It's actually bigger in its budget than the state of New Jersey.
Eric, is that document on your blog? The document you just mentioned?
You know, I should put it on the blog. It actually is probably on the blog.
I certainly recall
Yeah, I think there is a link